give the invocation.
Good evening, everyone. Would you bow your heads in prayer with me, please? Father, first of all, I thank you for each of these men and women that are serving our great city of Freeport in the office or position they hold. Bless them as they endeavor together to serve you with one heart and one mind for the betterment of our city. May they be mindful not only of the privilege, but the responsibility to serve with integrity, wisdom, and diligence. God, your word says we are to ask for wisdom, so I ask that they may be filled with the knowledge of your will in all spiritual wisdom and understanding, so as to walk in a manner worthy of you, fully pleasing to you in all that they discuss and decide to do on behalf of our city. The word of God also says, may the God who gives endurance and encouragement give you a spirit of unity among yourselves. I ask that this unity would spill over into fruitful collaboration efforts so that our city will move forward with the long-term goals that will cause it to prosper now and into our future. Your word also says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility consider others better than yourselves. Each of us should look not only to our own interests, but also the interests of others. God, in many ways, these men and women are gatekeepers of our city. May they be watchful and discerning of any impending harm or danger that could be on the horizon, or be willing to stand together to prevent any harmful impact upon our citizens and their well-being. May they guard our city with all diligence and care. And more specifically, give these men and women godly wisdom and direction for every agenda item to be discussed and or decided upon tonight. May they know what to say and what not to say to further the best outcome for our city as a whole. And in addition, I ask a special blessing of peace, prosperity, and a long, healthy life upon Randy Bucas in recognition of his retirement. And finally, I pray a prayer of peace upon these city servants that is often quoted from the book of Numbers, chapter 6. It says, the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance on you and give you peace. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Mary. Now we'll call this committee of the whole meeting to order. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Mayor Miller,
Here.
Alderpersons Clem,
Here.
Monroe is absent, Simmons,
Here.
Parker,
Here.
Stacy,
Here.
Shado,
Here.
Sanders,
Here.
and Sellers.
And if you could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Alderman Simmons.
Okay. I pledge allegiance
And Alderman Simmons, the meeting is yours.
Okay, thank you. So, can I find a motion to approve the agenda minutes?
So
Am I
moved.
right?
Second.
So, moved by Clem, seconded by, Clem
The opposite way. By Parker.
and Parker, sorry.
And ask for all in favor.
All in favor?
Aye.
And you probably should ask if anyone's opposed.
Is anyone opposed? Okay.
So then you would say the ayes have it.
The ayes have it.
Okay.
So be it.
7-0?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, any comments? Public comments? Keep the meeting going, Rachel.
Actually, you have the approval of the minutes are next.
I'm sorry.
Number 5.
Approval of minutes from the Committee of the Whole meeting held on May 8th of 2023. A motion, please.
So moved.
Okay, Second. Thank you. So moved by Shado, seconded by Sellers. All those approve? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that's approved, 7-0. Now we have public comments. We have one person signed up, that's Mr. Tim Mahoney, if you would please come.
Evening, everybody. I have to watch the clock. There you go. Asking an Irish attorney to stay within 3 minutes is difficult. My name's Tim Mahoney. I'm here on behalf of the Liquor Commission to discuss the ordinance amending Chapter 806 that is before you tonight. So, my understanding of the ordinance is if it passes, then really what's going to happen is over time, the gaming inside of the city is going to sunset, and eventually there'll be no gaming inside the city. Well, when I was originally put on the Liquor Commission by the mayor 5 or 6 years ago, whatever it is, I know how you felt. I felt the same way when I initially got on the Liquor Commission. I'm not a fan of the gaming. You've never seen me game because I never have. And that is the position that I had when I first went on. Well, what we found is we did a ton of research before we came before this tribunal and asked them to amend the liquor code. And we researched in a lot of different areas, and one of those was with regards to gaming. Here's what we found. 3 things. Number 1, the number of places that you have that game doesn't change the level of gaming. Loves Park was a great example of this. They had dramatically increased the number of gaming parlors. They actually created kind of a strip. It didn't increase or decrease the level of gaming. What you found was the people who wanted to game went to where they wanted to game. There's other places that decrease gaming, like you're looking at, and the same number of people who wanted to game found a place to do that. Number 2, we found that different people game in different places and in different ways. So like when the city annexed in part of South Street, there were parlors there, and the city had an anti-parlor position, which we took out of the liquor code. So when those parlors came in, the city council asked the Liquor Commission to sunset those liquor licenses. And in fact, when we said no, they sent it back to us to reconsider that. Well, the reason we didn't is because we had conversations with current licensees. And the one that I talked about was Sam Semino, because there was a parlor that was right by him. And I said, do you think that we should sunset that parlor's license? And the answer was no, which was surprising to me. And I said, why? And he goes, Tim, they don't compete with me. The people that want to gamble at a parlor like that are going to go to the parlor. The people that want to come to a bar like mine and gamble are going to come to a bar like mine. They don't compete with me. So we didn't do this stuff in a vacuum. We looked at things tremendously before we made the decision. If you guys do this, I think 3 things are going to happen, and this is just my position, but I think 3 things are going to happen. Number 1, I think it's bad for downtown, because people that want to start new businesses that might need gaming aren't going to start there. They're going to start in the county. Number 2, I think it's going to make it very difficult to sell your business if your business relies at least somewhat on gaming, because you're going to have to take that out in order to sell it. And number 3, I don't think it's going to reduce gaming. I think it's just going to move it to the county, because my understanding is the county is still going to do licenses, and so you'll have a ring of gaming around the
Sorry,
city. And I see my time is up.
3
I
minutes is up.
apologize.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
So we have no one else signed up. Recognition of retirement of Mr. Randy Buchan.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. My name is John Phillips. I'm the retired city manager from Rock Island, Illinois, and I'm representing the Illinois City County Management Association here tonight. And that association provides leadership and training for city managers, assistants, all their members, other professionals in local government. They support a code of ethics. They support anything that will promote professional local government in Illinois. And so I'm representing them to recognize Randy. He's had 46 years of service to communities around the country. He's provided great service here in Freeport in different positions. And he, in addition to being a wonderful public servant, he's also been a great supporter of our association. And he's had leadership positions in the association for many years here in Illinois and then on other states where he was also working. So what that means is he has taken a leadership position to support that training, the ethical standards, the professional development of people who are trying to do this good work and important work in municipalities and counties throughout the country. So I will, we have a little bit in common. The association has a conference, and Randy's a little bit of a runner. I'm a little bit of a runner. We were both more of that a while back. But one thing in addition to what Randy has done is coordinated and organized a 5K run at the winter conference, which is in February in a cold location in Illinois. And he should get some special award, I'm not going to give him this one, for having the coldest 5K run in the history of mankind, I think. It seemed that way to me that morning. I think only like 5 of us maybe showed up. 7. And was it 11 below zero? 13 below zero. And there was a wind chill factor involved with that too. So I know I had every piece of clothing that I had brought with me. Was that Peoria we were at, or Normal? Normal. And I put it all on, and my stride was about 18 inches. I could hardly move, but I got through it. But anyway, in addition to organizing that event for our members, he provided tremendous leadership, just serving as a president during the past year of the Illinois City County Management Association. So with that, I would like to present this plaque to Randy, and I will read it. It says, in recognition of the retirement of Randy Bucas, ILCMA is proud to contribute $100 toward the ICMA Fund for the Profession, dated June 2023. Randy Bucas. And I just wanted to also say a congratulations to Rob, your new city manager, and to all of you, best of luck in the future. Thank you.
Well, it's a pleasure to be able to have some recognition tonight, Randy. Even though we're really sorry to see you leave, totally jealous that you're able to move into the next direction of retirement, and wish you nothing but the best. So on behalf of the City of Freeport, I'd like to read the following proclamation. Whereas it is with great honor and admiration that we gather today to celebrate the retirement of former city manager Randy Bucas, who has dedicated the last 6 years of his career to the betterment and the progress of our community. And whereas Randy began his well-accomplished career as city manager in city administration 46 years ago, he has served in the roles of housing inspector, administrative assistant, assistant city manager, village administrator, city manager, and many more. And whereas Randy's service to the city of Meadville, Pennsylvania, the town of Weston, Wisconsin, the city of Lodi, Wisconsin, the village of White House, Ohio, the village of Germantown, Ohio, the city of Olney, Illinois, the city of Flora, Illinois, the city of Effingham, Illinois, and the city of Freeport, Illinois, undoubtedly put those cities and villages on a brighter path. And whereas Randy has exemplified exceptional leadership, integrity, and great responsibility throughout his career, and shared that expertise through a variety of leadership roles, such as the president of the Illinois City County Management Association. And whereas the city of Freeport has been honored to have the wisdom, ethical guidance, and professionalism with Randy Bucas at the helm as the city manager. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Jody Miller, Mayor of the City of Freeport, do hereby proclaim June 30th, 2023 as City Manager Randy Bucas Day in the City of Freeport, and encourage all to wish him the best in his well-deserved retirement. We mean that completely.
Ladies and gentlemen, today I stand before you to express my heartfelt gratitude to an exceptional individual, Randy Bucas, who's epitomized the values of a true public servant and embodies the spirit of the ICMA, that's the Illinois City County Managers Association Code of Ethics. Randy is not only a mentor, but a beacon of professional leadership who whose unwavering commitment has touched the lives of many. First and foremost, Randy's dedication to coaching his subordinates sets him apart. As a mentor, he goes above and beyond to nurture and guide those under his wing. He understands that true leadership lies empowering others, and he invests his time and energy in shaping the next generation of public servants. Randy's ability to inspire, motivate, and support the subordinates is truly commendable, and it is a testament to his genuine care for their personal and professional growth. Furthermore, Randy embodies the embodiment of professional leadership is truly awe-inspiring. He is not only talks the talk, but walks the walk, leading by example in every aspect of his work. His integrity and ethical conduct are unwavering, and he consistently upholds the highest standards of honesty and transparency. Randy's strong sense of responsibility towards the community he serves shines through in all of his endeavors, and his decision-making is always guided by the best interests of the people he represents. Randy's commitment to the ICMA Code of Ethics is truly exemplary. He understands the importance of principles such as accountability, fairness, and respect in creating a thriving and inclusive community. His actions and decisions are guided by these principles, ensuring that everyone he encounters is treated with dignity and fairness. Randy's adherence to this code of ethics not only serves as an inspiration to his colleagues, but also builds trust and strengthens the bonds within the communities that he's served. In conclusion, Randy is a true public servant, a mentor, and a professional leader who deserves our deepest gratitude. His tireless efforts to guide and support his subordinates, coupled with his unwavering commitment to uphold public service ethics, makes him an outstanding role model for us all. Today, let us take a moment to acknowledge and express our sincerest appreciation for Randy's dedication, passion, and his unwavering pursuit of excellence. Thank you, Randy. I'd like to present you with this plaque. It says, City Manager Randy J. Bucas, congratulations on your retirement, June 30th, 2023. Thank you for over 5 years of service with the City of Freeport and dedicating a career of over 40 years to city administration throughout the country. Thank you for serving with integrity, professionalism, and selflessness. And this is also a best wishes and congratulations certificate with gratitude for your service and dedication at the City of Freeport.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Rob. I could go on for about a half hour about everything that's gone on, but one thing I want to say is that during the 46 years of being involved in local government, it's the staff that I worked with, especially the staff here in the city of Freeport, that I'm very grateful for, because we wouldn't been able to do all the things we were able to do without these people that are sitting here and the support of the city council. It's not a one-man or one-person job. It's a team effort, and I really greatly appreciate the people I've been able to work with here and in other places as well. So thank you very much for the recognition, and if you ever need me, I'll be someplace.
Alrighty, so we'll have discussion regarding the community gardens presented by Director Duckman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I want to start with a little bit of background here. The Community Economic Development Department, we've received an increasing number of requests from residents and nonprofit organizations to either run their own, to either purchase their own vacant lots or to acquire city-owned lots and turn them into community gardens. And there's a multitude of benefits that include better physical health for our citizens, green space for gatherings, educational opportunities, and growing civic pride, which can lead to improved property values. And I provided a link with the memo, just giving a little bit more background about community gardens. So today, we're going to focus on a discussion about an ordinance, moving that kind of forward maybe in the future. But today's discussion is going to focus on 5 main points. So the first point we're going to talk about is defining community gardens in our ordinance as a land use. So that refers to our zoning code. The second part would be amending our zoning district to allow community gardens as a special use. So that would require a special use permit. The third part would be licensing requirements. The fourth would be disposition of our city-owned lots after proper zoning and licensing is acquired. And item 5 would be the resources allocated by the city possibly to aid in gardening efforts. And so, you know, we would like to see a recommendation to move this forward and eventually have an ordinance for community gardens in a regular council meeting. And I just also want to add, I'll probably, Attorney Steve Cox crafted the ordinance. At some point, he'll probably step up and help answer some questions. So I'll go from there.
Righty, I'll open the floor to discussion.
Yes, I'd like to make a comment on that. I do know with community gardens, Dean Wright, when he was running FACC, I think he had 3 different locations where he had them, and they ended up becoming eyesores in the community. Right now, there's one that's on the corner of State and Iroquois. It's an eyesore. They even put a water pump in there to do that, and it sounds good, but, you know, the harvest is plentiful, but nobody comes to harvest. And so then that way it grows up, and then it's just an eyesore in whatever community that's there, which I do know that they have a few of them out at Burchard, right? Correct?
Sure. And, you know, Alderman Sellers, I think Alderperson Sellers, apologize for that. Alderperson Sellers, I would say that, you know, you can't just throw out the idea of a policy for a few people with bad behavior. So when somebody comes with an idea, to just shut down and say absolutely not. If they come and they're well-funded and they have a community that wants to do something good, I feel like it wouldn't be a good idea just to necessarily shut down the idea altogether. I mean, one thing, to your point, we talk about in the ordinance is the Community Economic Development Department would treat it like a nuisance lot anyway. So if somebody wasn't taking care of their garden properly, we would post a violation, they would have their 7 days, and then they would go on the mow list essentially, and we would mow down the noxious weeds.
I totally understand, and I totally agree. But my issue is that, yeah, you guys are already, plates are full. We're adding more land that we're gonna have to probably mow, and that's where my concern is. Sure. Yeah, it sounds like a good idea until you have to really get into it and they do it. So that's my issue. And then what areas are they looking at? I know do they have areas planned, or they're planning to do it on, you know, where there are already 3 or 4 of them that's not being used?
I would say right now there's some interest, but I wouldn't say it's a large interest. I don't think we're going to see more than probably 3 or 4 would be ambitious to think somebody would take that on. Because one thing we're contemplating here is you would have to be motivated to go through a special use process, which is your zoning board of appeals, planning commission, council approval. You'd have to do that. And then we'd also have licensing requirements, which would mean your organization would have to have a minimum, believe we put $1 million in liability insurance. So you're investing quite a bit to be negligent. And typically speaking, people don't invest to be negligent.
Alderperson Stacy.
Yes. Troy, you said State and Chicago?
State and Iroquois.
Iroquois. I would just like to say, I was approached with this. And Mr. Skipper, he's the agriculture teacher at the high school, asked me, how did I feel about something like this? The kids in his class are willing to start some gardens and maintain them. They're trying to get grant money and funding to make this happen. And I believe if it was a project through this teacher and the kids in his class, that it would be a good thing. that they would keep it up. They worked so hard in that garden behind junior high. And they maintain it. I go to the farmer's market just to support them. And so I think it will make a difference on who is wanting to do this and the effort they put forth in accomplishing it.
I do not, I love gardening. I love flowers. I love it all. If they're taken care of, and it's
Yes.
gonna make our community better, go for it. I love it, you know? I just don't wanna see what I've been seeing in our community the last, I don't know how many years. That's what I'm tired of seeing. So if it's gonna be taken care of, I don't have a problem. But if
And-
it's not, then that's all I'm saying.
Okay. And just for, I know that, we have a lot of new members on the council here as far as the proper process and procedures to guide us through discussion is that, please wait for the chair, raise your hand if you have something to say, wait for the chair to call on you there. Typically then, if you have a comment to make, then you'll make your comment or ask your question. Staff will answer the question there. If you have a follow-up question, you can ask for permission for follow-up. The chair will then either say yes or no to the follow-up. Usually after the second, if you're granted the follow-up question, chair should move on to someone else just to make sure that everyone gets an opportunity to speak before the first person gets to speak a third time there. So that's just to try to be fair to everybody, okay?
They understand.
Okay, so Alderperson Clem.
Madam Chair, Wayne, kind of give me a little bit of an example what you're looking at. I mean, are you looking at these in one spot, or are you looking at them helter-skelter, or are you know, so we kind of got an idea there,
Well, I think its foundation is in the zoning code. And just to start there, we're saying that it would be allowed as a special use, which is an actual permit in the residential zoning code. So right now, what sparks this, a couple things. People are coming to my department. They've also I've had word that people want to invest in lots in different parts of the city, so not a specific part, but they want to get a residential lot because the city had to, more than likely, the city had to demolish a dilapidated building, correct? So one way that Attorney Cox and I looked at it is he said if we did it as a special use, that would be the first step. Somebody would actually have to apply for that. So that would give the public, the neighbors, a chance to give their comments on whether they would want it. And then after, presumably that if that was approved, they would also have to be licensed, which would give the insurance part of it. So the short answer to your question is it's not specific to an actual area. It would be specific to a zoning district.
Could I do a follow-up? Just a question, just because I know somewhat of the process. I know where you're going to keep it under control, but is that almost overkill to have to go through all that to get one? You know what I mean?
I don't think so, because I'm going along with Alderperson Sellers on this. I had concerns that there's not going to be enough of an effort from the community, and I'm looking at special use as an effort from the community, and I'm also looking at a licensing as an effort from the community. To come back and say, God forbid there was an accident, if they're licensed, they've showed their insurance. I don't just want anybody buying it, calling it a community garden, and then using it for something else. So I do think it's appropriate to have this level of enforcement.
Thank you.
Alderperson Shadle.
Thank you. The concern with the cleaning up, the $250 deposit, as it's written in here, would go for expenditures on cleanup efforts should they be needed.
Correct, yeah.
Which seems to me to be enough to mow down some weeds and haul them away. The other thing, $50 license fee, that takes it to $300. My insurance provider, I spoke to him on the phone. His opinion was that this liability insurance is probably going to fall into a minimum premium category that most insurance companies just don't write little bits and pieces anymore. That's probably, in his opinion, going to be about $300. So whoever's going to do this a group of people are gonna be $600 in, plus a lot of time to get through the process here to get something. I think at the point of, if there's 5 or 6 people going in to do this, they're $100 out of their pocket into it with some time. I don't see that as much of a concern as the one that's there now that's not regulated. Somebody threw some seeds out and, the heck with it, we're gonna let it go. At the level of $600 and getting an insurance policy and getting a permit, and a special use permit, I think they're gonna be serious about it, or they should be. And I would hope that that's the case.
Thank you.
Alderperson Sanders.
Mr. Duckman, I was listening very closely to what was being presented, and I'm trying to figure out, we're talking about liability, infrastructure, all of these things. Is there a committee that governs the Freeport Gardens here in the city so they can do an on-site inspection to make sure that the vegetables are guarded? Who's protecting the nature environment that can intrude upon all of the possibilities? Are we leaning toward that way? Are we govern ourselves to consider some of the major problems? Because there's a possibility, depending on how sporadic we have gardens, or we designate gardens at a certain location, so people can actually see any kind of tampering or any kind of critters that's infiltrating the garden itself, and who's going to be liable and responsible for maintaining that, because you end up with all kind of, if animals are intruding, you're ending up with all kind of feces, germ, diseases, and things of this nature. And then the public is exposed to all of these things. And I'm just curious, how do we maintain these types of elements? Because you're asking, for, a lot of this stuff is being asked to go to a produce market, you know, that kind of thing. I don't know for sure, but I think it should be be a concern about if it ends up on your kitchen table, you know, and people don't adequately you know, take care of those kinds of vegetables or fruits or whatever the case may be. So I'm just curious. I'm just throwing this out there as a broad spectrum so we can understand how do we cover those aspects.
Thank you. Thank you, Alderperson Sanders. Our code enforcement team is going to handle a multitude of calls for rodent harborage. Rodent harborage is a common complaint that we investigate pretty often, so that would handle that, and it would basically be handled in the same way that somebody with excessive weeds, tall grasses, et cetera. If somebody's, but I think Alderperson Shadle brought up a good point, and I kind of touched on this earlier. The process by investing up front, it's likely that they're not going to let it falter, or else they'd be investing a large amount of money to be negligent, which is usually those don't correlate together. So the answer to your question is we do have a team, a code enforcement team that could handle on a daily basis if somebody were to call to go check on the property to make sure it's clean and orderly.
Is there any further discussion?
May I add something? I believe in addressing Alderman Sanders, one of his questions, they cannot sell the produce, if I understood that correctly. Are you going to add that?
No, but thank you for adding that. I was going to touch on that. Our ordinance does specify, and Mr. Cox, isn't it specifically state in the ordinance that it cannot be the farmer's market? I believe.
I've got it.
Is it right there? I'm sorry. Yeah. Is it? I believe it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, can I please?
Oh, yes. Sorry, Alderperson Shadle.
Retail sales prohibited. Retail sales of any product, whether grown on-site or otherwise, are prohibited. Specifically, no farmer's market or vegetable stand may be operated on the premises.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Then that kind of throws Alderman Stacy's thought of the school district out the window, because they would obviously want that for the,
No,
no, they don't?
no, they don't.
What would they,
They want it to be a community garden that would be free to the community.
wow.
Not like the one they have behind the junior high. That one they do take to the farmer's market. But no, they want to set up community gardens for communities. It would be a class project that they would get credit for, and
So I have a question, if that's appropriate.
Sure.
For the retail sales, it's just that they can't sell it on the premises? So
They
if they
can't
grow it,
sell.
they can take it and sell it at their farmer's stand, am I correct?
no.
Or they can't sell it, period?
I think that also would get into the health department in terms of what they're selling, would take jurisdiction of that as well. So if they had a stand somewhere else in the city, they would have to go through the health department standards for selling.
But I'm just making sure I'm reading this right. Due to this ordinance, it's not prohibited. Just that they can't sell it on that garden.
And that's what yes, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. Yes, that's what the ordinance says, but I mean, we could certainly make it more strict. It's a draft ordinance, so it could be more strict to say absolutely no sales anywhere. We can do that. That's what's being,
Simmons, I think Attorney Cox had a comment.
I'm sorry. Attorney Cox, you had a comment? Yes.
Thank you. As I just stood up, my back reminded me about gardening over the weekend. So to the point about the retail sales, that's absolutely a correct read, that it's only on-site as drafted. I think the important thing to remember is what you have in front of you is a draft ordinance. So this is a template that's being offered to council. So certainly if there's any modifications or any discussion that needs to be made, you can do that. So to the comment about tightening up retail sales, we could certainly do that. I think it becomes difficult to enforce. You know, what are you doing with your produce when you're taking it home? Are you selling it? Are you selling it at a farmer's market off the back of a wagon somewhere in the county? It gets tough, but that doesn't mean you can't at least have that provision in the ordinance. I would also state, I was just going to comment as to the questions about the school. The school would be exempt. We don't regulate any of that. These are, as defined, we're regulating vacant lots. So this would be, primarily there's a vacant lot in the neighborhood, which is what I think what FACC had done. I think they had, I don't know if those lots were owned by FACC or whether those were just allowed to be used. But it would be vacant lots owned by the city or by presumably somebody else in the neighborhood, and then operated by, say, a gardening club or a church, I think is who you're going to see running these things.
Alderperson Sellers?
I know you, we had said once they put all this money into buying these lots, it just clicked to me. I was just wondering, because you said we don't have any control of what the school district does. If they buy these empty lots and now they're under Freeport School District, I'm just wondering, could that be a possibility or no? I know with Cecilia saying with the school, I don't.
Did we exempt the schools entirely? I think we did.
yes.
So if the school district would step in and buy it, that would be their property.
Right.
So that would be something that the garden club or something like that through the school or the agricultural department, they could do that without having to come through us for permitting. This is just private side. With the idea of, you don't have the same concern about somebody just abandoning the property with the school district as you do with a private organization.
Yeah, I had another question. The scope of this project and everything that's being contemplated or pending, are we also considering more information that could be added, availability comments to the open public, so they can give us some more insight of what, because you got professional gardeners out there, and they can give you valuable input or whatever the case. I don't know if we searched out for that, but I thought maybe we can get a little insight on some things from that perspective.
Sure. When part of this process is going to involve a text amendment because we're talking about our zoning code. So you're going to have a list of uses in your zoning code. If it's 10 uses, we're going to need then to add the 11th use, which is going to be the community garden. So when you have that situation, this is going to go to the planning commission for what's known as a text amendment, and then that's a public notice, 15 days prior. And the public will certainly have their opportunity to speak for or against any of these changes.
Okay, because they are, in most residential areas, districts and people like that do not care for someone adding additional things that does not look like a solid foundation or structure. Could be a hazard, could be a liability, all these kinds of things. I just want to make sure we cover those bases.
Yes.
And that we study them.
Yes.
Alderperson Clem?
At this time, are you looking for a motion to move it forward so we can take and work on this and bring it to fruition if it's right? If it's not, we can deal with it later?
That's what we're hoping for. We're going to be putting forward a text amendment.
Okay.
It's going to talk about the zoning. It's going to define community gardens. It's going to put it as a special use in the residential, the A1 and the F1 zoning districts. And then that would go through planning commission, and then you would see that eventually as an ordinance. So the idea would be today, if there is something you wanted to add in here, now would be the time to say, let's add this to please add this to your text amendment or ordinance.
I would make a motion to move it forward so we can work on it farther.
Second.
Sellers got me.
So I have a motion from Clem, seconded by Sellers. And take it to a vote. Any ayes? Oh, or Madam Clerk, or would
No.
you, do you call it? Do
For
it
the
this way?
committee of the whole, it's you,
Okay.
go ahead.
Okay. Ayes?
Aye.
Is that everyone?
Aye.
Mr. Aye.
And then also ayes
Nays.
for opposed or nays.
Any opposed?
You got her.
Okay, so that passes 7-0. And we'll move on to discussion regarding.
And just, I'm sorry, Madam Chairman, just to clarify so that everyone's clear, that I believe the motion then was basically to continue to move forward with the drafting of the ordinance to pursue community gardens. Obviously, then Community Development Department would continue to work on this ordinance, and it would ultimately still go to planning and come back before the city council at a future date.
Absolutely.
I imagine it coming to as an ordinance because it's going to go through a text amendment at our next planning commission. That's how I interpreted it.
Right. Okay. Yeah, so just, the motion was to keep moving forward with this process.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move to discussion regarding the ordinance amending Chapter 806 of alcoholic liquor sales, Section 806-.04, supplemental video gaming, placing a moratorium on the issuance of video gaming licenses. That'll be presented by Alderpersons Clem and Sellers.
Sellers. Somebody's got to be a second. I appreciate Tim Mahoney coming forward and speaking on behalf of the Liquor Commission on this. Before you, we have just an opposed amendment to the 806. You have a copy of that that's been given to you. But I'd like to give you a little history, where I'm coming from, where some other members of the council, I believe, are coming from that we discussed during orientation, and where we'd like to take a look at possibly changing some ideas. Tim brought up a lot of good points. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. But I also have to say that the last line he stated about the gaming is, it really just shows how reliant we are on funding from gaming today at the tune of $530,000 a year. 4 years ago, when I left the council, there were 16 places that you could do gaming at. Now there happens to be a mere 36 with about 3 or 4 more up for being approved. I believe that there comes a place that you say to yourself, is this really the way we want to do business? Is it the moral way of doing business? And I want to kind of base it on my experience to give you a little bit further idea that it's more than about, it's not necessarily about dollars and cents, it's about who it affects. Okay? Dovey gave us a nice spreadsheet here tonight, and take a look at it in the future, and you can look at it. And one of the things you'll find out real quick, if you want to make a lot of money, own a gaming business near a housing project. We're taking advantage of people that cannot afford to spend their savings in gambling. And I go to a gambling establishment that happens to be at a gas station that we go in every morning and have coffee. Play a couple bucks in the machine, you're able to have coffee for nothing, you know, sit there and shoot the breeze. I watch the number of people that walk in there and sit there and go between the ATM and the gambling machine. And these are people relying on that funding for rent, for groceries, and for everything else. We currently now have, I think, in the one thing that there's 306 terminals in the city of Freeport. I believe, like Tim Mahoney said, that gives you enough places to go. You know, let's take a couple streets. Let's drive down Galena Street. Let's drive down South Street. What do we see? Gambling sites, gambling sites. You know, many of these, and you can see one of the things in this that we can all at least talk about or think about. There's only X number of dollars out there for gaming. The more you split the pie, the more some of these people are going to be in trouble. And when you look at these, there's one of them here at the bottom that took in 118 bucks for a month. You know, now remember, we're also, most of these, except a few that are grandfathers in that Dovey has listed, are supposed to supply food and drink, be able to have food while you're there, be able to purchase it, and none of this at this period of time, we're doing a fantastic job of policing or following up on through community development, which Wayne and I have talked, and it's not Wayne's fault. You know, you can spread so much out, but how much are we taking a look at what's really going on in here and the people that it affects? And I just believe that Steve basically took and drew up this to make it effective June 1, 2023. One of the things I believe, it's not my goal to eliminate gambling in the city of Freeport. And I think Tom's totally wrong that if we stop gambling and stop this, that it'll eventually die. That's not true. You got 32 places that are going to have it regardless. You got 4 more that got applications in. And Larry, if you buy a place and want a license tomorrow, go buy it before a date or before it ever comes up, and you're legal in doing it. I'm not saying we're going to start tomorrow want to start tomorrow on ceasing gambling establishment. I think we're going to start tomorrow or start at some point in stopping the number of them that we have totally. I think we've gone too far. I believe that Attorney Tim did a real good point, and I think it's one of them is McChesney Park or Loves Park. One of them has stayed away from them. The other one, there's one on every corner. When I really was awakened by this was a number of years ago when I was on the council, and they brought up how many gambling machines there are per person in the city of Freeport, or in the city of Rockford. They had it down to where there was a gambling machine for every 100 and some, 200 and some people. Now, there's a point where, you know, to me that's overkill. You know, what I'm looking for is to cease the total number of them, gradually as we, they either, there's going to be some go by attrition. Some people, we all know, some people are keeping their businesses alive just simply off of gambling. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. There's many establishments that this is one of the things that's keeping them going. But should we be allowing that to happen on a larger and larger basis all the time? The original intent of these was to produce food and liquor sales and food and liquor tax. You know, guess what? A lot of people that are disadvantaged are being taken advantage of off the number of machines that are available or going to be available. So that's kind of where I come from on it.
I think it was Alderperson Sanders was first.
Yeah, he was over me.
So Alderperson Sanders,
Um,
have a question?
Dr. Clem, I appreciate your sentiments on this particular ordinance. What you said was so true. There's a lot of relevancy there, and the manipulation of the community at large in order for gaming and liquor to be imposed upon people in a society, in a community of the whole. But I'm not discouraging or saying I don't care for it. I'm just saying it's good that we're recognizing it, that everybody take time and pause, that we should know that when you put things in play and how it's going to affect individuals, and do we have age limits that can visit these establishments and sit at will all day long playing gaming, drinking, and do we have security in place to stop such things that 17, 15-year-olds can pass as 18-year-olds, and so on and so on. That's like giving them an opportunity to just buy cigarettes and alcohol freely at will if they frequent establishments long enough. If we don't know who's doing, what establishment is doing the follow-up to secure those areas where we can infringe upon, families' economical positions, and they are in jeopardy as well. So what are we promoting here? You know, I sympathize with you dearly, and I'm saying to myself, what are we doing that is effective to make changes where everyone feels okay with what we got under control conditions? You know, if we can control the environment, establish certain ordinances that will offset all of the things that are taking place within our city, because we have not done a study of that. We have not done surveys of that. And I'm just saying we need to be able to put ourselves in a position where we can also set opportunities for our citizens here in Freeport. So I'm just right along there with you. I don't want to take business away from business owners, but are we instructing them fully enough to let them know that we're serious about young heads coming in and sitting at gaming tables and things of that nature? I'm concerned about that as well, and I think we all should be. And so this opportunity right now that we're speaking of deserves another look, and we should pause to think about these things, just not let them run through and go like wildflowers, like we're in the Wild Wild West or something like that. And I think we should take everything that we do in consideration or talking about and pause for a minute so we can study that.
Just, Alderman Sanders, just in the places that I've gone into or gone by, I believe I can say there's one that I know that cards everybody that comes in the door. That's one out of how many? You know, and I'm not saying that others do or don't, you know, but of all the ones I've gone into, I've had one.
Yeah, we have not had a survey or an observation of these establishments that may not know the full understanding of what ordinances that are in place and just let it go without no objections, you know. So I think we should, I think we should make notifications anyway, get them out there to these establishments that are selling alcohol and gaming and things of that nature, just to make sure that our citizens are knowing for a fact that we are searching things out that can be very detrimental to people, you know, as far as economic status and things of that nature. So.
Thank you. Alderperson Parker.
Yeah, the way I feel is, I understand what everyone said, but you know what, these people are individual, they have the right to go and do what they want. If they're addicted, they're gonna go, if they're in our town, they're gonna go to Iowa, they're gonna go wherever they need to gamble. We are not going to stop it, we are not gonna control it. Whether they have money or don't have money, they're still gonna find a way to do it. I've had family members that they were 80 years old. They drove all the way to Clinton before Illinois got their gaming. They're gonna do it regardless. I think that, and we're making good money off of it, and our budget can use it. So I'm in favor of letting them do it, because we're not gonna stop them. They're individual people that wanna do what they want. Thank you.
Do you have
Alderman.
I didn't know if you had a response for Alderman Parker, or if not, Mayor Miller had asked, and I'll.
Either one of you, that makes no difference to me.
Just wanted to remind everyone to, you know, after you've spoken, to just keep moving to make sure that everyone gets a chance to speak before someone who's already spoken gets to speak a second or third time.
Okay, so I have several, I made myself little notes, so I hope I remember on all of these little points. As far as underage goes, let me tell you, those liquor license holders, those gaming holders know exactly what the laws are, and they will not bend on them because they know that their license would be in jeopardy. Okay. I've actually been in a place where there was someone that was just casually sitting in a place that's roped off, and the owner obviously was on camera watching his staff and made a phone call immediately and said, "Get that child out of there. My my gaming license is not going to be jeopardized." So they know exactly what those laws are. We don't have to govern them. They know. And as far as manipulation, spending, those types of things, I think it's unconstitutional to try to put something on as, well, you can only sit here for so long. I don't think that's even legal to do. That's an individual's choice. As far as policing, Alderman Clem, as far as, you know, how much are they selling, as far as the ordinance says that you have to have at least 51% of revenue in your business being something other than gaming. And as far as knowing those numbers, they have to account to the Liquor Commission every year. So each one of those license holders has to give us their open book of how much percentage did they get in gaming, how much percentage did they get in food, how much percentage did they get, whatever that is. And there's only, as far as I remember, I believe there's only one establishment, and since this has been put in, that didn't meet that, but our ordinance also says that we understand there might be an off year, and so we would not pull that from them in 1 year. Out of 5 years, they have to prove 3 years of being compliant. So, I mean, we always know that there's issues that can happen. So, so the point of gradually getting away from liquor licenses or gaming licenses, it will eventually happen if this is the way the council wants to go. But because for a couple things, you won't be able to sell. Let's just say Pub 219 wanted to sell, and they could not sell with their. You have to get a whole new liquor license. You have to get a whole new gaming license. If under this ordinance, you would not be able to get another gaming license. So that would affect their sale. So eventually, it would run out. And just to go back to the very reason that we even began thinking about this ordinance is when Rosati's wanted to come to Freeport. And they came to us and they wanted to purchase a liquor license. and they wanted to have gambling machines. And at that time, there was a cap. And so we had to discuss, what does that look like? Because do we want to draw in more businesses? Do we want, more restaurants to be able to come in? And if they say we're not coming because we can't get the gaming, is that really the best for Freeport? I totally agree. Don't like gambling machines. That's not my thing. But I know that there are many of our restaurants that rely on that little bit of extra money, whether it's $1,000 or $20,000. They rely on that because times are hard. So, and like what somebody did say, you're not going to stop someone from gambling. So, do we eventually want all that to be going out to the county, and they will put it around the outskirts of the city? We already have that. Is that what we want? I mean, there's things that need to be considered. I don't like gambling, but there are other things to think about. So, anyway, those were my thoughts.
Alderperson Sellers.
I just want to say that I do agree with Alderman Clem on the gambling, and I like playing. I like playing, and we do go different places. We go to a lot of the places in town. But what Alderman Clem is really trying to say is that our community is not strong enough to handle more and more gambling with the economy the way it is. And like you said, Mayor Miller, times are hard. And and it can become an addiction, and that's their addiction. But do we want to keep adding to, I'm going to be your pusher and steady, make more and more out there so you can get it? And if we have, I know we have some on the books already, and I say let them come in. But I'm also looking at the addictions that are out there and the people that are really going through a lot. I mean, I never gambled growing up. My families were gamblers, and they could play all day, all night. I never did it until after my father passed, and I started taking my mother because she loved it, and I started taking her. Guess what? I'm hooked. I play, and sometimes I play over my budget, and when I play over my budget, I'm at home sick trying to figure out how I'm going to take care of that budget. Everybody doesn't have where they have somebody to help them get out of that hardship that they're in. So we're not saying take them away, because I do like going. I like going with my sisters, my friends, whatever. We're just saying, how many more do we want coming in to our community when we don't really have the jobs and things to help people to be able to take this? Look at you look at our school district, 100% are free and reduced? We have a lot of things going on in our community that we need to think more of, trying to get money and get people jobs and get people strong homes than gambling. But I do like playing. So I'm not saying no, I'm saying we got to put a cap on some things.
Alderperson
Yeah,
Sanders.
I agree with you, my sister, in some regards, and respect all of that Mayor Miller had just put on the table. That's the reason why we pause, because a lot of people have different ideas, different insight, different perspective, and that's why we pause to listen to whatever we're hearing, because we have to sometimes take anything that is going to make a major change in people's lives that can better their lives. We're not psychologists, like my sister was alluding to. We're not psychologists. We can't put people on notice and say, your morality is tainted. We can't judge people for what they do or what they say. And I agree with Brother Parker. People are going to do what they want to do if it's a part of their nature. If it's part of their nature, we don't want people moving out of the city of Freeport because of our own belief system. So we want to be fair all across the board. And I think that's one way. That's what helps me change my conclusion. That's what persuades me when I hear people talking with common sense and not just being selfish to themselves. I mean, we have to think about everybody that could be infringed upon with these ideas that we're asserting. So my thing is, along with everybody, I'm evaluating myself, see where I stand in the mix, and see if anybody else amongst us can see something solace to what we're talking about, something solid that we can feed on. So that's my perspective on what we're looking at. And I tell you, it sounds very encouraging when we're talking like this. You know, it gives me a feeling that people really people matter about are taking these things. I should say, the matters of our constituents and the things of our council, that we're really taking apart to understand where it is that we're driving this course. So I like everything I'm hearing so far.
Alderperson Stacy.
Yes, I have a question as I look at this paper, and it's for the year 2022, January through December. And I see the monies that was brought into the city, and is this funds put in a general funding, or where is this money going? And what is it used for? Would be my question of the night.
Alderperson Stacy, that does go into the general fund. So it supports all of the general activities of the city, including police, fire, cities, street department wages, equipment, supplies, under the general fund.
Street department wages?
Yeah, it is not specific to one line item that it's applied to. It is deposited to our general fund, so it supports all of the basic activities of the city.
Any more discussion? Alderperson Shadle?
Thank you. I guess the morality of it sounds wonderful, but as soon as we get to a point where a year from now, 6 months from now, somebody wants to open a restaurant, but they can see that the demographics of the city of Freeport are not enough to support just a restaurant, and they're going to want gaming machines. And if we go through with this, we're going to have to say, no, I'm sorry, we can't. And they're going to say, no, I'm sorry, we can't open here, and we're going to lose a potential business. I think that's my A-plus concern on the issue.
I do have do you have a
Sure, no,
response?
go
No, you
right
can
ahead.
respond, and then I'll ask. Did you have a response for Mr. Shadle?
Oh, sure. Excuse me, Alderman, very good point. Let's take Rosati's, they're out of business now. Prime example, we went and got them one. To me, there's still something, and I worked with Rob and Mr. Cox on this. To me, maybe there's some magic thing out there that can be worked on, okay? But the other magic thing about that is, where do you stop? Do you let 5 more in? Do you let 10 more in? Do you let, I understand 100% what you're saying about the business end of it. But we've got them in gas stations. In fact, from what I hear, this is 100% hearsay, that this came before this council, not the council here, the one beforehand, for one that was a dry cleaners. Now you tell me what a dry cleaners has got to do with food and alcohol, and that's what they're primarily after the taxes. There's some place you gotta say, time out. Thank you.
Alderperson Shadle?
Just in reference to the dry cleaner, that was in this council, that was just a year ago.
Yeah,
And that didn't happen.
right. But it got out of the Liquor Commission, correct?
I believe it did, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I say something about that? It's because the Liquor Commission doesn't vote on that. It was just presented to us, And so
got
it-
to
the
the council.
the decision had to come from the council. So we just moved it to present to the commission, present to the council because it's not a decision that the commissioners could make.
Okay.
Just
Alderperson
one,
Shadle and Stacy.
thank you. One more thought on my part would be, I would be a lot more prone to be in favor of this if it wasn't worded quite the way it is, that in a case where somebody that holds a liquor license now, if they sell their business, that gaming license is gone. If that was, if there was more of a cap on a number, you know, we've got 36, I believe it said now. You know, if we put a cap on 40, you know, you were saying, there's a, if we have an end point, you know, how many? Well, let's say 40. And I would be more in favor of doing something like that, but I think the way it's written now, if Rosati's goes out of business, there goes one. And who's next to go out of business? There goes another one. The gas station chain gets sold from Johnson Oil to Billy Bob's Oil Company. Those are gone. Over time, it's not going to be in 2 years, but over time, that number is going to come down to a very small amount. And
Madam Chair. Greg, to me, that's wide open. If that's stuff that we want to talk about, I believe that's fair. You know, I just think it, you know, no matter what anybody says, it shows us how reliant we are on this money and how much sin money you want to take and do stuff. You know what I mean? I just think it's kind of, well, it just goes back to, I believe, one critical thing we're missing here is who is really being hurt by this. I agree 100% with what Alderman Parker says. If I want to go spend $500 at Joe Schmo's gambling machine, I'll first see if my wife will give it to me and try and get it. You know, but all kidding aside, you know, if you can, you can. But the people that these are really hurting are the people that are renters, that are spending their rent, they're spending their groceries, they're spending all their other stuff. And I understand it's addiction in many cases, and in some cases it isn't. But let's put it on the council and let's talk about it. Let's move it forward to where we can talk about it.
Alderperson Stacy, did you have your hand up when Mr. Shadle did? Okay, I'm sorry then. Go ahead.
I do agree with Alderman Shadle. I do think that maybe rewording some of the words, because I do agree with if you have a restaurant, you should be able to still have your, you know, the gaming to move it or whatever. But I think that we need more conversation about it and looking at it. But I don't say get rid of them or whatever. I just say we need to, at some point, with the way our community is, we need to, at some point, put a cap just because we don't have the economy to keep adding more gaming, you know.
Just one thing to finish up. Could we really get in a catch-22 because of one factor? Years ago, a liquor license in the city of Freeport used to be worth a fortune because there was only 33 of them. Now, Dovey, you give Dovey 10 grand and you got good scruples and ethics and all that kind of stuff, and you'll get a liquor license. Remember, the minute that you do that with this, that's exactly what you're doing to what the price of those licenses are for people, too. But just keep that in mind. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it's a fact of life. Thank you.
I like to,
Oh, I'm sorry. Attorney Zito?
So I think ultimately I'll ask, it looks like what I'm hearing is that there's at least support from the council to direct staff to say, guys, continue working on some of the language to maybe consider, show us some proposed language that provides for a cap, some number, there, and maybe some adjustments to the language to allow for existing businesses to continue to be able to have their license and in such a manner that even if they were to sell, that license would be available to the new buyer there, but ultimately still have a cap on the number of licenses there. Is that
Yes.
fairly accurate as to what the consensus of the council is?
I'm not sure. I think that should be a vote because I think there are aldermen that don't want to
Okay, we'll
limit
make it
our
official.
businesses, right?
Right, and then that's where I was getting to, Mayor, because
I make a
so,
motion to move it forward for more discussion and rerouting with Corporation Counsel Cox on
Second.
the wording.
Okay, so Clem made a motion and Sellers seconded it. Any ayes? Well, let's take it to a vote. Ayes. Oh,
Quick
sorry. Mr.
question,
Shea.
would this be moving it to a council meeting or moving it to the next CAL for discussion?
Let's keep going, if you don't mind, let's keep going on the council end, but if we don't agree with it, we won't pass it on. You know, I'm in agreement to work with everybody to move forward on it. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, sure.
so that's to move it on to the next council meeting next Monday,
Was that
or Tuesday, excuse me, Alderman
what
Clem.
the motion was for?
Yeah, that'll work.
To move it on? Okay, so we are voting to move this on to the second, or the next council meeting. And we have a motion and a second. So any ayes?
Aye.
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 And in opposition?
No.
No. No.
Given the fact that by voice vote right now, since we have a close number, why don't we do this by roll call then?
Yeah, please, Madam Clerk, would you take the call for this?
We'll start with you, Madam Simmons.
This is for further discussion to then vote, correct? Okay, yes.
Parker,
No.
Stacy,
Sustain.
Shadle,
No.
Sanders,
I sustain.
Sellers,
Aye.
Clem.
Aye.
Oh, let's see what we have here.
Abstains go.
Three ayes, 2 noes, and 2 abstentions, so the ayes have it, and the motion carries.
That'll be moved on to next week. And let's move on to discussion regarding updating transmitting system by the ID department. Presented by Director Sutman.
Hello, Council. This is a little bit of a different presentation you're used to. This is about a project that has already been completed. We just want to kind of highlight this one for you guys. Purely informational. This project was completed in around April. Staff started looking at it around December. But again, completed here in the spring of 2023. So kind of the first part of this is SCADA. That's an acronym and a very technical term. So what is SCADA? Oh, and it's not showing up really great. Basically, in the abstract, a SCADA system, the center circle there is our SCADA server, okay? And each of those little circles around the outside is a remote site, okay? It could be a lift station, a water treatment plant, a sensor of some kind. What's supposed to be shown there is lines connecting all to the center, and those are our communication media. And that's what this upgrade was about, the lines of communication between our SCADA solution software and all the remote sites and sensors. So again, SCADA, supervisory control and data acquisition. I am not a SCADA expert, but kind of the 100-foot view of that is it's to monitor, control, and report on your infrastructure. You know, is the well being filled? Is it empty? Is a lift station running or not? Going way back, the SCADA system used to be controlled by, it was a dry loop circuit, copper wiring, think telephone, way back when. Years later, changed to radio, and up until a few months ago, we still had some of our infrastructure on radio, and that's what our biggest problem was. Almost weekly, we were having failures.
usually due to inclement weather on the antennas and things like that, causing staff to have to work overtime and to get service calls from vendors to come out and fix it. So again, in this project, we're looking to reduce the risks associated with communication loss. The biggest one is if, say, we didn't know there was a sewage overflow somewhere, the public health risk that could cause, and then just the cost of communication losses of having to have staff man 2 sites when the SCADA system, the computers could monitor it. So basically the project was we got with our SCADA vendor, software vendor, and they have a platform where they can convert over radio to a network of wireless modems that are cellular. We think the project was a success because now things that used to take hours, maybe days, for them to travel out on site and help us fix, they can simply remote in through their computers and fix in minutes or hours. Plus, we don't have to pay for their drive time and things like that. Project was funded through the water and sewer operations budget. We did 11 of the 17 sites that required wireless modems. The tentative plan is to do the remaining 6 next year. They're already on cellular, but not this integrated platform. We think it supported connected, safe communities because fresh drinking water and proper removal of waste is, since early days of man, one of the best things you can do for public health. And this definitely supports that. Any questions?
Where's the central location? Oh, I'm sorry.
Alderperson Sanders.
I'm sorry. Where's the central locations where the servers are installed?
Well, right now it's a cloud instance.
It's a what?
It's a cloud instance. It's
Are you saying that it's in cloud?
a secured cloud, yes.
You-
A secured
on a
private cloud.
We trust the cloud?
It's a private, so the cloud is somebody else's server.
Did you just say private, sir?
It's our vendor's server. The cloud is a general term, meaning our data is sent to their server, and they host it, and then their services serve back to us the data we would normally house inside,
Okay.
all through secure VPN.
You say security.
512 hash, I believe.
By what?
Very secure, up to all the stringent security requirements of.
We have not had any problems with this particular cloud and service because we need to know all about the cloud itself and
Yes.
whose mandate, who is overseeing it, the oversight of it, because you're talking a lot of data.
That
And who's responsible for that data at that cloud?
That was my very first
And-
question then when they
and
said
again-
it's on the cloud.
And again, just so everyone, remember, try to keep your questions to a question and answer, and then if you have a follow-up question, ask the chair for permission to ask a follow-up question, and then see if anyone else wants to ask any questions, so that we give everyone an opportunity to ask their questions or make their comments.
My question doesn't indicate interruptions because it's a continuous flow of information that I'm trying to receive. So I can't put a question and then wait for the next individual come around so I can ask the next question. Okay, because we may not be on the same page.
Understood. I just want to make sure that to the extent that you ask your questions, then,
Just wanted you to know how this is flowing.
understood.
Yeah, and so.
And we have a process,
We
so.
don't break communications with each other, because there's some data, there's some information that I'm scrutinizing. I'm scrutinizing where this data is being placed.
And we all understand that. It's just the correct procedure would be to ask for permission to keep talking. And if you could also lean in so everybody on the microphone can hear you.
Okay.
Otherwise, the people that are listening on YouTube will have no idea what you're asking.
Okay, well, let me put it like this then, Mayor Miller. Without us being able to explore what our technicians are doing, especially our IT specialists, we need to know how far of his credentials when it comes to security networking. That's what you're virtually doing. And I just want to make sure that we have covered most of, if not all 100, but at least 50% of the basis of what a cloud can represent and what it can be, how it can hurt us without you knowing the scope of what a cloud really presents. And so we need to just not accept the fact that we put in our data, the city's whole data banking system and everything on a cloud. We just can't do that, okay? And so we're gonna, I like for us to weed out potential hazards, potential security breaches, okay? And we need to involve ourselves more so in the technological aspect of what we're dealing with, okay? Thank you.
And that is his job.
Yeah, I know it's his job, but I have to scrutinize his job as well.
Alderman Simmons.
Yep. Alderperson Sellers.
I would just like to ask, the $495 a month cellular, is that U.S. Cellular? Who's? And is that the total of the 11, or is it
That,
$495 11 times?
I'm sorry, yes, that's the 45 times 11, I do believe.
$495 times 11?
45 per month,
Oh,
per
yeah,
device.
4
I believe it's 45. I have to reverse the math on that, but I think that's right. It's for, that 495, that's for all 11.
Okay, that's what I'm asking. Okay, that's cool, yep. And I know Alderman Simmons, I have one more question, just one more question.
Alderperson Sellers.
I know you're saying the project funded through the water and sewer operations budget. With us adding the $20 extra that we're adding to everybody's water bill for the other projects, how is this affecting the water and sewer? And, you know, what are the line items and what are all the deductions out of the water and sewer operations? Can we afford this, of that for? I mean, you don't know that, but.
Isn't that capital? So this would be I'm getting over my skis here, but this is operations, the $20 is capital. Does somebody else want to?
I believe this project was budgeted last year, or is this new?
Operations budget.
Operations budget for this year, so the funding for it didn't have anything to do with the money that we passed for the CIP increase. This is just regular day-to-day water usage that paid for this project, that was already budgeted.
From last year.
Well, from 2023.
Mr. Boyer?
Thank you, Chairwoman. I just wanted to jump in and say, number one, this particular upgrade, we've been moving toward the Metro Cloud cloud service for all city utility operations. There's a number of reasons why we're doing that, and there are very many communities in Illinois and our surrounding area that are using this exact service. So we've moved forward with this a couple of years ago because we also have issues with on-site servers, the potential damage if those servers go down, what happens to the utility if we can no longer connect to our remote sites. So that was part of the idea about going to the cloud, using Metro Cloud for this. Just to answer your question about the funding, Alderwoman Sellers, the big picture is when communications went down during storms, we really had stretched our human resources to be able to attend all those sites and ensure that they were operating appropriately, not to mention the inconvenience to people after hours and the additional overtime required. So, however, this is, as you can see, it did cost something. However, during an emergency, it could very quickly outstrip our resources and be very costly to have human intervention at each one of these remote sites, and that was kind of the rationale. So it actually gives us more control during emergency and is more reliable, so we have less reasons to call people out. So.
Alderperson Sanders.
I heard you. and I'm hearing, you're Kirk, right?
Yes.
Okay, I hear both of you guys talking. But the thing about it is, the system had been in place for readouts to computers for alerts, problem solving, problem issues, communications. We have had these resources in place for decades. Okay. When you're proposing the upgrade and everything, you have to explain to us all of the details. Okay. We need the details so we can take an assessment to determine whether or not what you're proposing is relevant to us right now with all of the major projects that we have going on right at this moment. But the thing about it is, I guess if we take a motion to look into this matter even further up the road for another look-see, I think we're going to discover some things that we're going to overlook, that I know we're overlooking. Okay, and just by the fact that you mentioned where our servers are going to be maintained and stationed, and that worries the hell out of me. And because our information doesn't sound solid, secured, we have not done a networking security test on these kinds of things. If you have already, those are the kinds of details that should be disclosed to us. You know, we need to know that everything that we are doing protects every service department within the scope, even the plants, to make sure that someone other than yourself, a team of some sort, that is managing the scope of everything that you're trying to present to us, because it creates a problem right now. Just because you're mentioning and talking about that, I only see one man standing before us. I don't hear you talking about a team of people, but we need to be able to have oversight with who's working on all financial data, all reported data that's going into the cloud. We just can't have one individual doing the insurgents to the data that we provide to you in order for you to do your job. So the thing is, we got to reevaluate what you're proposing. And I know you're just doing your job, and we probably short on manpower and all these kinds of things that can help you out in the process. But from my perspective, these things have to be put in place, because you're talking about people finances, the central treasurer, any department agencies that are handling funds over a network. And that's where the issue come in at. So we need to know these kinds of things so we can make an assessment and a decision for conscious decision-making problems that is going to occur. And I can guarantee you it's going to happen, okay? And so while we're discussing this, I want us to stop for a second, and let us do what we normally do. Do our homework, do diligently, because this is a big major one that we're dealing with right now. And if you don't want to see the city shut down because of a glitch or some sort, we need to relook at that. So that's what I have to say in that regards.
Thank you. Alderperson Clem.
It's him.
Oh, saying that. Parker, I'm sorry.
Well, I can say that he can explain it detailed as ever for the next 20 years. I wouldn't understand it all. I totally trust him with my life when it comes to this stuff, and he's carried us through a real good time. So I have all the faith in the world on him. Thank you.
This is, excuse me, sister.
Alderperson Stacy.
Okay.
Nope,
The SCADA
Stacy.
system, again, is to communicate data on whether pump 1 is running, pump 2 is running.
More or less.
It's
Things
a,
like that.
a functional, not a personnel data. It's not tied to any computer system at City Hall.
Mm-hmm.
This is
Correct.
just strictly pumping stations, wells that go back to a company's central server, and then they relate the information to us so that we know if pump 1 is down at midnight, that we can get over there and see what the problem is and get it straightened out.
Pretty much correct.
Thanks.
Okay, Alderperson Stacy.
So do I understand you to be saying that this project is already done?
Yes.
11 of the, and there's 7 that remain?
Yes, so how I foresee it happening is that'll just be a line item in the operational budget for next year. It wouldn't necessarily be a thing where we would bring it to council to do 6 wireless modems.
6 or 7?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Okay,
6, I believe. There's 17 and 11 are done.
okay. And so the funding and everything has already been received and granted?
You will decide that in the coming months, the council.
But you said that it was budgeted for. This project was budgeted.
This one was, the one next year will be budgeted by the city council, so to speak, yes. The one we already did was budgeted for this year, and we did it,
And so it's complete and paid in full?
yes.
Mr. Boyer, you had something to say?
Thank you, Alderwoman. I just wanted to highlight the fact that I think it needs to be said that we have staff who are competent and are able to develop the scope of work, solve a problem, and increase reliability of the operating system, and implement it at very low cost, whereas if this was to be contracted out, I'm sure it would be significantly higher. So I just want to applaud the efforts of Kurt and everyone in IT, as well as the collaboration with maintenance, our operating staff, and Metro Cloud for carrying this off. It was an excellent effort, and it's provided us with better security, more reliable operations, and I think it was an excellent output, so thank you.
Is that the private security company you're referring to?
Metro Cloud is not a private security company. It's the company that handles the SCADA, so the supervisory acquisition data administrators.
Alderperson Clune.
Yeah, Kurt, just to echo her a little time back, SCADA system's been in force for a number of years, since far before the Burchard Water Tower was put in place. It's been an excellent system and really, as described, brings a heads up to the people working it, including the pressure reducing valves, everything else along the line in it. So I think it's an excellent thing to continue forward in. I know it was upgraded at that time and has been upgraded in the past and has proved to be a good system for us. Make a motion to move it forward?
Second.
Oh,
Excuse
I'm
me.
sorry.
Sorry about that.
Mr.
That's okay.
Sanders.
That's all right.
Yes.
I was going to say there's no motion needed. This was just an update from Alderman Sutton, Director Sutton, excuse me, there as to the project that happened already there. Obviously, he had indicated that for the remaining, I believe, 6 modems that need to be installed still, that'll come at a later date before the council there, but this was just an update on what has been done already as far as the upgrades to the SCADA system.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Oh, Alderperson Sanders.
Yeah. How did the recommendation of changing out and upgrading the system to cellular, Wi-Fi, and all that other crazy communication gadgets that are being used, who recommended that those changes should be made?
Me.
Did you go out and do a complete study and survey on the old skaters to the new wireless remotes and all of these kinds of stuff like that?
So the new SCADA was already in place. This is only
Yes.
the connecting lines between nodes.
Right.
We didn't do a full study. How to put it? So we were going from radio to wireless cellular, kind of a known value of more reliability, as well as kind of there's a daisy chain effect of the radio system where if one went down, a lot go down, whereas the cellular more of a mesh network. They don't have to feed through each other.
Right.
But at the dollar amount and the scope of what we were doing, that traditionally is staff's purview to pursue a project in that way, at a project of that level.
So you did all of the examination of all the departments and plants and things of this nature, the substations and anything that is readable through data? Have you went through those whole process to do that? Because that's a heck of a lot of stuff for one man to operate that.
For this project, it wasn't necessary because we didn't need to break down the entire system, which is documented. It's just the communication. So instead of taking a train, you're taking a highway.
Okay.
We changed how you're traveling, not what those two things are, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Mr. Zito.
And certainly, Alderman Sanders, if you have additional questions about the details of the project and what homework was done by the IT department in evaluating the project and what recommendations they made, those would probably be appropriate to handle offline in a separate conversation as opposed to in further discussion here while we still have additional agenda items to get through.
Madam Chair, I don't know if you want to call on Darren Stiegel, who deals with all of he's been kind of waving his hand a little bit. I don't know if that's.
Sorry, I didn't see him. Oh, that's okay.
I can just give you some SCADA background. SCADA's been in place, like Tom said, for over 12 years here in Freeport. We did an upgrade with an RFP process 2 years ago to upgrade to a Metro Cloud. They're a professional firm that specializes in municipal utility systems. They are secure. It's a VPN system that only Freeport people can log in. We intentionally did this to save Freeport money. Our old system was proprietary, and we had a lot of proprietary costs that came along with that system. So more and more municipalities are going to a cloud system because we don't have to upgrade the systems every 3 years. They are automatically in the fees that we pay annually to update them. There is no financial information. This is only information transfer of our facilities running, turning on, and how many gallons they're pumping. There is no financial data. There's no other systems that are linked to the city of Freeport other than just the communications of our wells, our wastewater treatment plant, and allows operations remotely from different sites daily. We're also upgrading some of our new facilities and bringing them online, which is what Kurt's kind of implied here. We're taking the old systems that were in place and updating them to new standards so we get better communication between the systems. So there was no new platform. We already went, I believe it was 2 years ago, through a complete council process of selecting a firm that we all chose as the best at that time with the best cost to Freeport to give us the best reliability and sustainability of the system to move forward. So that process is done. We're just upgrading some of the systems as we go along because we couldn't afford to do it all at once.
Thank you. So we'll move to discussion regarding creating our art commission for Chicago Avenue. And that'll be Manager Boyd.
Thank you, Chairwoman. In the past, there's been discussion regarding the creation of an arts committee or arts commission to help select the approved murals, sculptures, and other forms of art in public places. The current city strategic plan calls for the city council to create an arts and cultural commission. When Chicago Avenue was constructed, art sculpture bases were installed in the sidewalk. There are approximately 3 sculpture sites. There are a number of communities that have some type of art commission or council. With the reconstruction of Chicago Avenue, there is now a focus on the particular street at this time. The downtown sculptures could be marked with a walking tour drawing more interest to the downtown and businesses that are located there. So tonight, staff invites more input on the project, and we basically want to know what council's preference is moving forward. If we could, we would like to move forward with creating a Arts Council to help us on our selection of pieces and the installation of sculptures on Chicago Avenue specifically. So I'd like to open up the floor to questions and comments.
Alderperson Sellers.
I do understand the arts and all that, because I see a lot of it in Rockford, and it really looks good. My thing is, I feel that I don't want any money from any more money from the city to help, pay for this, we buy this. I think that if they do it, they have to find their own way of getting their money and whatever, because we have, understanding, like I said, Chicago Avenue looks nice and everything, and I like it, and I love the arts, just like I like the gaming. But I do feel that if it is a commission on figuring out where the art goes and all that, no money should come from the budget of the city, because we need, I understand Chicago Avenue, but we have a lot of streets that need looking after also. So I understand the arts, but I just don't want to see any money.
You have a response, or Alderperson Stacy?
I just want to say there's more to Freeport than the downtown. We need our streets fixed. And that is our main focus, but nothing is happening with our streets. It's not all about Chicago Street. What is we gonna do? We never have money when it comes to our streets, but there's project created after project after project. When do we start looking at Freeport as a whole and giving back to all the people in all the areas and not just a certain portion? Someone please help me understand.
Mayor Miller?
Well, I can't give you the exact feet, but last year I believe we did roughly 6 miles of streets in repaving and construction. This year we have approximately the same amount of miles that are on the books ready to do, whether it's by our own crews or whether it's being contracted out. We've got another 6 miles ready to go. And they really are in every single ward, and a lot of it is determined what's needed underneath as far as, water and sewer type needs, because you obviously don't want to pave something and then in next year you tear it up because you got a water issue. So those have to work together. Where there's not a water issue, those are streets that we're trying to just get our own crew doing that paving to make a difference. So I'm sure you probably have specific streets that you can name off, City Manager?
Absolutely, Your Honor. We're continuing to work. Adams Avenue is, we're going to be starting construction on Adams Avenue here very shortly. That's approximately a $10 million project, and I think it represents something like 5 times the total amount that will be going on elsewhere within the city for the next 5 years. Also, I wanted to mention that Clinton Place, Clinton Street are scheduled for work this year. including utilities. And then we have a number of other city initiatives, various paving projects throughout various wards. So yes, we're moving forward on streets, but I just wanted to circle back around and mention that, as far as the strategic plan for the city of Freeport, a vibrant arts and cultural experiences is one of our strategies in our plan. And having distinctive cultural districts link Freeport's bustling commercial districts together is also part of our strategic plan. So this is just simply implementation of the direction we're going, and I appreciate Alderwoman Sellers' comments about funding, and I think that's something that we can definitely look at and see what can be done. But I think that the course of this discussion is mainly about maybe starting this small level on Chicago Avenue, where we've invested in some infrastructure to install some sculptures to help increase the cultural significance of our area. So,
Alderperson Shadle.
Thank you. I think down to the essence of this, creating the Art Commission and putting sculptures downtown in an area that is somewhat of a melting pot for the entire city. The festivals that the Greater Freeport Partnership puts on to draw people downtown, the music on Chicago on Friday nights, I think that's a place where everybody can come. And the art, the sculptures, if we do it without any impact on the budget, then all the better. But to get a commission together to come up with sculptures, come up with what they would want to place and how they would want to place it and bring the ideas back, I think is a great idea.
I see Mayor Miller, but Alderperson Stacy had her hand up right before Mr. Shadle started talking. Did you still have something to say, or?
I'm going back to our streets. And Mr. Boyer, City Manager Boyer, I want to do it right. You have talked about this Adams Street project. It has been going on for 2 years. And even now, since before I took office, we were told it's going to start soon. It's going to start shortly. It will be starting this year. Truth be told, we're still waiting on somebody's approval. Still. How much time and effort are we putting into the projects that we are desiring for our constituents compared to all the time and effort that's going into ideal after ideal after ideal?
Did you have a response?
I do.
Mayor Miller, did you still have something to say?
The attorney wants to.
Oh, Attorney Zito.
Sure. And certainly, I think those are all valid questions, Alderman Stacy, as to the road projects there. But again, just to stay on point with what this agenda item is, this is about whether or not the council wants to move forward with the creation of the Arts Commission. There certainly, if there are questions regarding road projects specifically, those can be addressed by the city manager outside of this topic.
So I'd just like to circle back to Alderman Shadle's comment. This is really not any different than when the Art Plaza was working on, and the Art Plaza is not owned by the city. It's under the leadership of the Freeport Art Museum. And so when they were determining how that was going to look, what sculptures would be placed, rotation, permanent, whatever that is, they formed a committee, and then they decided as a whole, what does it want to look like? So it wasn't just the art museum making that decision, and this is kind of the same thing. We don't really want just the staff to make a decision on what do we want the sculptures to look like on Chicago Streetscape Avenue, because it is a part of the plan that was designed several years ago. So now it's at the point of making those decisions, because that's where it is. So do we want to follow the strategic plan and form an art commission to get some outside input pulled together from people that want to serve on that commission and get their input on what does that look like? Where does the monies come from? Do they raise the money? Do they rotate sculptures? Do they permanently put them in? So there's a lot of aspects. There's a lot of moving parts to it. So it's a matter of, do you want to form an art commission to allow them to do that, or do you want the city to just finish with that design approach? I would prefer a commission to be able to make that decision and recommend what goes on, just because I think artists have a better feel than city staff. It's not their thing.
Alderperson Clem.
Exactly.
Is there any dollars and cents available for this?
I would just say we'll have to do a review. If that's the council's pleasure, we'll do further analysis and find out what is available funding-wise. However, no, my sense right now is that this would have to be somehow independently funded or donation funded, but we can get back to you on that one.
Thank you.
Alderman Simonson. I would just like to know, do you already know who you want on this art council, or is there, it's still wide open and nothing's been already put together?
It's wide open, and we've actually looked at what other communities are doing, so what would we want it to look like? That's kind of, it's all out there for discussion for that art commission to pull together. So.
Alderperson Sanders?
Yeah, since we're talking about forming some kind of committee to look at it from a artist perspective, and what will it look like, I think we should engage anybody that's have a background in art to conform, so they can do a proper study to recommend our role as council people to take a hard look at their goals and what their aspirations are when it comes to setting up sculptures and things of that nature. We should look to the people who actually do that stuff. You know, let them give us let them come to the podium and just explain to us what their visions are. And then if we can cipher information from that dialogue, then we can make an intelligent decision along with them, you know. And so we'll be all in the mix in trying to make sure that commission or that committee is strong on every level. And so we don't have to go through this every year, you know. We won't have to go through this every year. There'll be planning. They'll be making strategic moves and things of this nature to beautify and enhance our downtown area, whatever we're doing. So I think we should let them play a role. I think we should seek out for someone to help in the process.
So is that a motion to want to move forward with a art commission?
Yeah, I truly believe that we don't want to put people in place that don't have an insight on how an art structure should look like. And I believe that. That's my...
Mr. Boyer, you had your hand up.
I think that was just answered. Thank you.
Alderman Simmons, I just have one more thing. I don't mind the art council or whatever. I'm just saying I don't want any money coming out of the city budget to handle this or pay for any of this or that kind of thing. I don't mind the council. I just don't want, you know, any money coming out of our budget for it.
Yeah.
I'll second Mr. Sanders' motion.
Alderperson Stacy? Did you have a question?
I wanted to make a motion
Oh, okay.
that we look into this further and have a complete understanding of where the funding is going to come from.
So we already have a motion and a second. There, Madam Clerk, could you repeat the motion that's on the floor currently?
To form an art commission to beautify and enhance the downtown.
And that was your second, Alderman Parker?
Yes.
Larry,
Okay.
you made that.
We have the motion by Alderperson Sanders, seconded by Clem. Before we
Parker.
take a vote, oh.
We're gonna get her straight here.
I did, yeah. I'm
Swear to
sorry.
God, Don't
Alderperson
apologize. It's just,
Parker.
we gotta laugh about it.
So, before we vote, we didn't come up with how much this is gonna cost? It doesn't say anything in here except for staff time.
This will be by ordinance, right?
Correct. At the end of the day, right now, I don't think, staff is not asking for you to approve the creation of our commission. They just want to know that you're generally in favor with the idea of a art council, and if that's the consensus, as you guys vote, just to move forward with further exploration of the creation, they'll go back and do the homework, draw it up as a draft, bring it back to you guys, and it can address then the items like funding, how many people are going to be on it, how are they going to pick the people that are on it, et cetera, et cetera. I think they're just looking to see, is there general support for the idea of an arts commission? Because if there's not, then they won't do anything further.
So,
Alderperson Stacy?
So are those cement blocks already there? So this was premeditated from the beginning?